Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. All right, so let me give you a little bit of background on this video. I'll tell you a little story. At the opening of my videos, in the intro, you'll see a picture of the Georgia Gun Club. That's a 100-yard indoor range where I'm a member and I do my shooting. The Gwinnett County Police also use that facility for training purposes. And on this particular day last year, I was at the range and some officers were there training. And as I was leaving and I was out in the parking lot, some of the officers were out there. And so I had a question that I wanted to ask. And I've wondered this for a long time and always wanted to get a police officer's opinion. But spoke to the fellow, introduced myself, and I posed my question to him like this. I said, in a home defense scenario, somebody breaks into our house, we hear them, I know that they just kicked in the front door, and I have a choice of 3 weapons. I can choose a Glock 17, which is in the nightstand, which has never misfired or jammed, or I could choose a Remington 870 pump shotgun loaded with number 2 buckshot, or I could pick up an AR. Which one would you go for? And the officer said, undoubtedly, I would go for the AR. And I said, well, the Glock has never jammed, and the shotgun, has stopping power, of course. But he said the benefit of the AR is that you've got a 30-round magazine. And when you find out that there's somebody in the house, you don't know if it's one person or multiple persons. The AR is the better choice to go with because you can aim that better than you can aim a pistol. And I said, well, I've had it jammed before, but I will have to admit that was when I bought some really, really, really cheap reloaded ammo that I found online. But he said, if you use factory ammo and you keep that rifle clean, he said, you'll never have a problem. And that has turned out to be true. I no longer use cheap reloads. I reload my own ammo. But I wanted to be sure that the round that I was using, because if I'm going to pick that rifle up, I've got a Ruger AR556. And if I'm going to pick that weapon up first, I've got to know that it's reliable and it's going to work and that it's accurate. And so what I did is I developed some loads for this particular rifle. What I did is I have a SIG Romeo 5 dot sight on there now, but what I did for a brief period of time when I was testing my loads is I put a Vortex Crossfire 2 6 to 12 by 50 scope on this rifle, and I zeroed it at 100 yards. And I tested a lot of different rounds, a lot of different powders, a lot of different weight bullets. And the best round that I found that I could consistently shoot 1-inch groups with was a 75 grain boat tail hollow point with using Varget powder, 22.7 grains of Varget powder. And so I decided that that would be my home defense round. It's heavy, it's a hollow point bullet, it has stopping power, and it has accuracy. So in a recent video, I posted some results of load development with a 55 grain full metal jacket bullet and accurate 2460. And so when I shot those, this rifle had been zeroed for the 75 grain boat tail hollow point bullets, and it was shooting to the right. Well, I thought, I don't want to change that, because if this is my home defense round, and I zeroed it again at 35 yards with the Romeo 5 dot sight, but I guess that got moved or something, because it's still shooting to the right even with these other loads. And you'll see that here shortly in the video. But I believe this is the load, and I think you'll see the results at the end of the video, and you'll see that this is one that you definitely want to look into if you have not shot a Hornady 75 grain boat tail hollow point with 22.3 grains of Varget. that's a load that you need to test. So we're going to load up 50 of these, and we're going to take them to the range and see how they do. Here I'm going to do what I call the plunk test. This brass was all purchased, pre-prepped, once-fired military brass. Came from Academy Sports. I was in there looking for some bullets, saw this brass, decided it was time to upgrade. This has already been prepped, sized, deprimed. The crimp ring was not removed, so I had to run these through my Frankfurt Arsenal Case Prep Center to clean that primer pocket up. But you see how that just drops in there and it sits flush? And you hear it make a plunk sound. It slides in and it slides out. If these don't fit this gauge, they'll jam my rifle. So the ones that don't fit, I'm setting aside. Here's one. You see how that case head extends above the surface of the case gauge? I'll have to run that through my press if I'm going to use that, see if that comes out. Sometimes that won't come out, some defect in the case. I can push it down in there, but I want it to drop in easily. So I'll do these. I'll get 50 that we can load, and then I'll come back to you. So I performed the plunk test on 51 pieces of brass. I may have miscounted, so I put one extra in there just in case. I've got a loading block that holds 50. We have the Frankfurt Arsenal handheld priming tool, and the shell holder that's in there was last used for a 6.5 Creedmoor. So we have multiple shell holders here, and it's also set up so that you can load many different calibers of rifle cartridges and pistols as well, and large or small rifle primers. So we'll take the holder that holds the primers. We remove the cover, and we're using Winchester number 41 small rifle primers. So I place the primers into the tray like so, turn it upside down, and most of them are already turned right side up, but you shake the tray just a little bit. Some of these that are stubborn, you can just touch them with your finger and roll them a little bit and they turn right over. These are all aligned face up. We reinsert the cover, insert the primer tray into the priming tool. One drops down in there. I grab an unprimed case, insert it into the holder, squeeze, and we have a primed case. That one went in too easy. I'm going to have to check that one. Okay, that felt good. And you can feel these when they seat. So I've got 50 of these to do. That one felt a little easy too. So I've got this tool. It's basically a nail that's been ground down to have a spike on the end that fits inside of the primer hole. I insert the bullet, and if I can't push the primer out by hand, I know it's solid. Good and solid. All right, so I'll get these all primed and then we'll come back. Okay, so it's time to weigh out the powder charges, and for that we have the RCBS M500 beam scale. And I've created a little jig here where I have an old iPhone 3 or iPhone 4, I guess, that I've got set up, and the camera is pointed exactly to this center marker here, because when you weigh that charge, you want this line on the beam scale to line up with that center marker exactly. So the first thing we're going to do is zero the scale to make sure it's zeroed out properly. So we have two weights. We've got the big weight on the left side and the little weight on the right side. And we're going to set both of those at 0. And you can see what the scale is doing here. So there's this wheel on the end. And we're going to turn that wheel left or right to adjust that up or down. This operates based on gravity. It's not electronic or digital, so you know it's always going to be right because gravity doesn't change. Okay, so we've got that zeroed. And then what we're going to do, we're going to be loading 22.7 grains of this Varget powder. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the scale to 22.7. So each of these small white marks here is 5 grains. So we're going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. And then we're going to go 2.7 on this end. We're going to come over here and we're going to go to 2.7. The middle marker is 0.5, there's 0.6 and 0.7, 8, 9, and then 3. Okay, so we've got this set for 22.7 grains of powder. We load the dispenser. Love that smell. Nothing else on earth smells like it. Now, the last time I used this powder measure, I was loading 6.5 Creedmoor. So these charges take about half of what the Creedmoor did. So I'm going to run this back in. You turn it to the left to reduce the charge. Then I'm going to throw a charge here. Place it on the scale. Doesn't budge it. So we've got to increase the charge. So to increase the charge, we turn it to the right. To decrease it, we turn it to the left. Dump that back in the hopper. Up and down. Okay, now that moved it. And it's actually just a little heavy. So I'm going to back off on this adjustment just a little. And almost forgot. Funnel. Powder trickler. Need to drop a few charges in here. Okay, I can see that we're a little on the heavy side. So I'm going to drop a little bit of this. Put it back on the scale. And you can see here that it's just a little bit low. So I'm going to come back. Takes a second to fill the tube on this trickler. Here I want a granule and another. And can you see this marker? You see that marker on the camera is on 0. And that's two-dimensional. You want to make sure you're looking at that scale at a 90-degree angle. And by putting that camera there, you're able to do that without having to bend over, because that gives you a two-dimensional image of a three-dimensional object. Okay, so we've got our powder charge there. Set the funnel in place. Drop the powder charge. Move the funnel. Drop another charge. Weigh it. And it's going to be just about right on the money, just a little high. Sometimes you drop out too much and you have to trickle a little bit more in there. Watch this. I trickle just a little bit and I see that coming back up. And we're at 0. Take the charge, drop it, move the funnel. I think you're getting the idea here. These have all been just a little on the heavy side, so I'm going to back off on the measure just a little bit. And this one's just barely like 1 granule low. And there we are. Drop the charge, move the funnel. So I've got 47 more of these to go. I won't make you watch all those. I'll come back shortly after they're charged and continue. So after all the cases are charged with powder, you then want to do a visual inspection. You want to go back and look inside of every case and make sure that you haven't missed any. If you did happen to miss one, that could create a problem because the primer would have enough power to dislodge the bullet out of the cartridge and most likely get it stuck in the barrel, which would end your day at the range. All right, these look good. The next step will be to seat the bullets. The cases have all been charged with powder, so the next step in the process is to seat the bullets. And so I've laid these out on a towel and I have turned them all in the same direction. It just makes picking them up to set them onto the case a little bit easier. There's less fumbling around and less likelihood of dropping one. We have the caliper ready. So we've got the seating die set up. So let's give these a shot. Turning the caliper on. So I'm backing out. So I'm going to seat these at 2.25 inches. This one's coming in at 2.281. So I'm going to tighten down just a little bit. 2.269. We're going to take it slow until we get that seating depth right. 2.260. 2.252. That's probably about as close as we're going to get it. And there we have 2.250. So we're going to seat the rest of these. And then after that, we'll come back and crimp them, because these are going to be shot through an auto loader. And when you're shooting your rounds through an automatic rifle or semi-auto, you want to make sure these are crimped. Makes the bullets feed easier, more consistently, and it saves you from the possibility of having a bullet accidentally push into the case, possibly cause a misfeed. So we're going to seat these and then we'll come back and we'll do the crimp. Okay, so we have all 50 seated. So now we're going to crimp these. I'm going to remove the seating die. This is the Lee breech lock system, and these dies change out rather quickly. So I'll slip the crimp die in, turn it, insert the shell into the case holder, and it's done. It's a little hard to see. There's a very thin line around the top of the round where it's crimped onto the bullet. So we'll run these through, and then they'll be ready to take to the range and shoot. I have these 10 round magazines for my AR. So before I get to the range, I'm going to go ahead and load these, and so they'll be all set and ready to go, and I won't have to load my magazines while I'm sitting there at the bench. When 10 shots have been fired, I can just remove that magazine and pop another one in, and it makes the shooting go more quickly. Not that I'm in a rush, but I want to be efficient with the use of my time. Okay, so today I'm shooting my Ruger AR556 with the Romeo dot sight, and I have ammo loaded in these 10 round magazines. I'll be shooting a Hornady 75 grain boat tail hollow point bullet with 22.7 grains of Varget. I zeroed this rifle with a scope at 100 yards a while back using this load, shooting 1-inch groups. There's a link posted below to a previous video in which I was shooting 55 grain full metal jacket bullets. I was shooting accurate 2460 powder with that, and the groups were streaming to the right, and I didn't want to adjust the sights because this is a defensive round that I have loaded for home protection, and I didn't want to change the sights on the rifle. So this load is the same load as that defensive round. So I'm going to be shooting this today at 35 yards, and we'll see how they compare. All right, so like before, I'm going to shoot 5 rounds, bring it in, mark those, send the target back out, and shoot 5 more, and those won't be marked, so you'll be able to identify the first group and the second group. So 10 shots on this target, 2 5-shot groups. So it does look like it's still shooting to the right, so I may have to make an adjustment here. That is definitely shooting to the right. All right, and that's much better. We've got all 5 of the second group, 1, 2, 3, and I'm sure 4 or 5 there. Okay, that last 5 I can cover with my thumbnail. We've got a 1-inch group here. Man, we ate that thing up this time. So here are my results from the range shooting Varget powder with a 75 grain boat tail hollow point bullet with 22.7 grains of powder. This load worked extremely well for me previously, and so we will see how these compare with the previous loads. So here we had group number 1. I've circled the first 5 shots, and we had a group of 2.2 inches. Group 2 was 1.58 inches. On the second target, we had the first 5 shots grouping at 1.94 inches, the second group grouping at 1.01 inches. On the third target, we're tightening up here a good bit. I don't know if I'm just getting more comfortable with the rifle or what, or more adjusted to the trigger, but here we had a first 5 group of 1.24 inches, and amazingly, group 2 was at 0.49 inches. All of those grouped right here at the aiming point at the tip of the pyramid where I was aiming. In target number 4, the first group was 0.82 inches, these circled items here, the circled bullet holes here. Group 2 was at 1.13 inches. And then this one I was very pleased with. We had our first 5 grouping at 0.93 inches, the second 5 grouped at 0.99 inches. So when you add all of those together and average those, group 1 averaged at 1.5 inches exactly, group 2 averaged 0.97 inches, combined those two averaged 1.23 inches. So again, in a defensive situation from 105 feet, all of these targets are deadly. So very pleased with the results. I will continue to practice with this particular round. I also have it loaded for home defense. Please feel free to post a comment below. I always try to read those and respond. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you soon.